Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Yearly Rollover webinar for School Insight. I'll be your presenter. My name is Jason Blinstrup, and I've got just a couple of quick slides to show you before we dive right in. So today, after our brief introduction here, we're going to talk about a couple of things. The first one will be the first stage, step one, things that can be completed before the end of the school year. This is different from the things that we'll cover in step two, things that should be completed only once the current school year has ended. When we're done with today's webinar, I'll pull this back up, but in case you have any questions following the webinar, feel free to contact us at support@common-goal.com or at our phone number 630-592-4200 and then press extension 2 for support. We're going to jump right in to our yearly rollover procedure. To begin with, the first thing we'll need to create is an academic year. These are the things that we can do before the year rolls over. From your admin main page, you'll go to academic years, and you'll see that you'll have at least one current academic year. You'll click the Create Academic Year button. From the drop-down menu, choose the upcoming year. In my case, that's going to be the 18-19 year. It will default to a status of future, which is good because we'll want to have this in the future setting for right now so that we can set things up in preparation for next year. And we'll offer you a series of items that will be copied, data from the 17-18 academic year into this new 18-19 academic year. You can, of course, uncheck items if you don't want to copy them forward, but I would recommend that you leave everything checked and copy everything over right now. The only thing you might not want to copy over, if you were going to, say, get rid of all of your bus routes, you could uncheck that and start fresh, but otherwise it's easier if you copy everything over to begin with and then can make edits to the data in the upcoming 18-19 year. When you're all set with your options here, click the Create button at the bottom, and you'll see that the academic year was successfully created. The next thing we need after a new future academic year will be a calendar for the upcoming year. You can click right here on Calendars, or from the main page, go to Academic Calendars. Make sure in the upper right corner you select your new academic year and click the Create Calendar button. All of your calendars will need a title. I'm going to start with something simple. And then you'll need to enter your first and last days of attendance. Now, if you haven't finalized your calendar for the upcoming school year yet, but want to get started on some of the rollover tasks, you can put in a calendar with fewer days. It's far easier to add additional days to your calendar in the upcoming year than it is to remove days from the calendar. So for right now, I'm going to say that my calendar starts October 1st and runs until October 31st. I'll also need to select which days school is scheduled. By default, we've selected all of your weekdays, and then which grade levels. This morning I'm working in a junior high, so I'll choose 7th and 8th grade. When you have your options set here, click Create Calendar. If you have all of your calendar days in correctly, we'll back out of here and we'll go to the next thing we need to set up, grading periods. You'll see the grading periods were copied over from the previous year. However, we don't have a first and last date for any of our grading periods yet. So once you have these dates sorted out, you'll come in here and you'll edit each grading period, and you'll add a first date and a last date. Since my calendar is not 100% complete yet, I'm going to forego this step at the moment, but I could add something like this. And then I can leave the first grading period active so that once the year becomes active, teachers will be able to begin entering assignments and attendance. You'll do this for any of the quarter or trimester grading periods you have. You can skip the semester summary grading periods if you have them. Once your grading periods are set up, the next step will be to promote your students into the new academic year. For this, you'll go into Students Multi-View and then navigate back to the current year. From the current 2017-2018 year, at the very bottom of the page, you'll click Promote or Transfer Students. And we're going to start with the students that are ours and that we'll be keeping for next year. So we're going to promote or retain students within the same building. If your school district only has one building, you'll only have to do this step. If you have several buildings, for example, a high school, a junior high, and an elementary school, you'll start with this step to move up the students that you're keeping, and then we'll go on to the next step after that. So we're going to promote or retain students within the building. And once you select that, the page will give you a few more options. We're going to promote into the next academic year. Since I only have one additional academic year after this, it doesn't give me any other choices. I'm going to choose to increment by one grade level. I can choose to do that, or I can keep everyone in the same grade level they are currently in. I'm going to move everyone up to the next grade level. If you know things like your homeroom instructor, your advisor, ending dates for the current year or entry dates for the next year, you can put those in. For right now, I'm going to leave them blank. You don't need to do them now. You can always come back and handle them later. As I scroll down the page here, you'll see that all of my 7th graders are already selected since they'll be moving up into 8th grade, but I won't be keeping the 8th graders, so they're not selected by default. The system will only choose all of your grade levels up to the last grade level in your school. It will figure out that you're most likely promoting the highest grade level currently in your school into another school. Either they're graduating out of high school, or they'll be moving from the junior high into the high school, or the elementary into the junior high, and so on. Once you have all the correct students selected, scroll down to the bottom and click the Promote Students button. One thing to note on this, promoting the students creates a new record for them in the upcoming year. So if you're not sure if a student will make the change from, for example, 7th grade into 8th grade, and they may be retained in the following year, it's easier to promote them now and then edit their grade level in the upcoming year instead of failing to promote them now and having to find them in the following year. So for right now, I'm going to promote all of my 7th graders into 8th grade. So now you'll see that I have 51 7th graders, and they were all promoted into 8th grade for the upcoming year. I'm going to go back into the 17-18 year again, and now I'm going to promote my 8th graders into the high school. So I'll click Promote Transfer Students. This time I'll promote students to a different building, and see that some of the options are different. Their next school will need to be the demonstration high school. We'll still move them into next year, and we'll increment them by 1 grade level. Again, if you know this information, homeroom instructors and advisors, things like that, you can put that in now. I'm going to leave it blank for the moment. I'm going to unselect everyone because I don't want to move the 7th graders up. Then I'm going to select all of the 8th grade. A faster way to do this would be to select the grade level at the top here, and then I only have to worry about seeing the 8th grade at the bottom. I can check this Promote with a question mark button. It will select all of my 8th graders, and they'll all be moved on into my high school for next year. Typically, it's best to promote the students that you're keeping first, then promote the students into the next building. The high school will typically only have to promote their current 9th, 10th, and 11th graders into 10th, 11th, and 12th, but then the junior high will have to promote 8th into 9th, and then your elementary school will have to promote either 5th or 6th into the junior high, whichever grade you start with. So now you'll see that I have 8th graders for next year. I don't have any 7th graders in the school because my elementary school will have to promote them into me later on. And then I have promoted this current year's 8th grade into the 9th grade at the high school. Once we've promoted our students, the next thing we'll want to check on is our schedule. Your schedule can be copied over in one of 2 ways. When you go into the scheduling page, you'll go to the current year, and if it looks like this and has a bunch of different links, that means you're using several of the scheduling features. You'll go down to the lower left here under Setup and click Copy Schedule. It'll ask you what year to copy from, so we're going to copy from the current year. We're going to copy to the upcoming year, and we're going to click Copy Schedule. This is going to copy over your cycle days, your existing bell schedules, any rooms that you may have created, and all of your classes or sections from this year. There we go. So now we've copied all of our classes over. So these classes that met during these time periods during the current year are now going to meet at the same time in the next year. If your schedule doesn't make a whole lot of changes from one year to the next, this is the easiest way to do this, and then you can adjust certain classes to meet at different times of day or to be assigned to different instructors. If your classes pretty much stay the same, you would be done at this point. If when you get to the scheduling page, and we'll change back to the previous year again, if you see this message, the current options are set to disable all scheduling features, that means you're not using any of our scheduling functionality, which is perfectly fine, and instead, you would go back out to Admin Main, go to Classes and Sections, and in the current academic year, you would click Copy Classes. This will allow you to copy your current set of classes from the current year into the upcoming year. Inside this box at the top here, you can choose to select a few classes at a time by holding the Control key and selecting them individually. You can drag and highlight a series of classes all at once, or inside the box, once you've selected one, if you hold Control and press A for all, you'll select all classes. You'll choose which year to copy to. In this case, we'd copy to the upcoming year. And we'd say that if we hadn't already created our grading periods, we'd be able to copy them over at this point as well. Now, since I've already copied my classes, I'm not going to copy them again, but this is how you would move them if you're not using any of your scheduling features. Once you've copied all of your classes over, the next item that you'd want to look at would be your lunch information. So for this, go back out to Admin Main. Under Modules, go to Lunch. And then let's take a look at your food items. This was copied over on creation of the new academic year, but let's verify that everything is here. In the upper right, switch to the future 2018-2019 academic year. You can see that we have all the same food options from one year to the next. Since we're working in a future year, if you'll have changes in your price, now would be the time to enter them. So for example, if your regular meal option was going to go from $2.50 to $2.75, you can edit that food item on the right-hand side here and change the price for reduced students from $2.50 to $2.75. Make any additional changes that you would need, and then click Save. So that wraps up all the steps that need to be done or can be done before the current academic year has ended. So these are things that would get you ready to start scheduling your classes for next year and creating rosters. You would do that by whichever method you prefer. Next, we're going to talk about some of the steps that need to be done after the current academic year has been finished. The first of those steps would be cleaning up any of your instructors. For example, if you had an instructor that retires at the end of this year or moves to another district, you would go here under Basic Setup to Instructors. Choose the instructor that has left. On the right-hand side, click Edit. And then mark this instructor active from Yes to active No. Doing this will remove the instructor from having access to any of their current classes and any classes that would be scheduled in the future year. This removal is effective immediately as soon as I click Save, so this teacher would no longer be able to log in, which is why we don't want to do this until the current academic year has ended. I'm going to leave Sarah here active at the moment since she still has to finish teaching this year. We want to mark our instructors active equals no instead of leaving them as active or deleting them, because deleting them could have some negative impact on your report cards and some other reports that you would run in the system. We don't really like to delete data. We would prefer that you mark them inactive so that you can still go back and refer to them later if need be. The next step that you'll want to complete after the current academic year has ended is to roll over your fees from this year into the next year. So under Modules, you would go to Tuition and Fees. In the left-hand side under Setup, click Account Rollover. Make sure you choose the current academic year so that you can roll from this year into the next year. And then choose an account where you have some balances. I know I have balances left on my registration and fees account. And we'll see that we have some students that have paid off completely, but we have a few students that still owe some money for this year. So we will select all of our students that need to be rolled over. So anyone with a zero balance won't roll anything, but anyone with a negative balance currently will roll this balance into the upcoming year. And at the very bottom, we'll click Roll Over Accounts. So you see that we've rolled over all of our accounts for our 7th graders that are retaining with us. The final step for yearly rollover would be to mark the current academic year closed. Marking an academic year closed is done by going from Main to Academic Years. You'll edit the current year, and you'll change its status from active to closed. We recommend closing an academic year after you've finished all of your work in it. So any state reporting that you need to do, any report cards or grade entry done by the teachers, any balance transfers, or any other information that needs to be moved from this year to next year. Closing an academic year doesn't remove access to any of the data. It just prevents the data from being edited any further at that point. So if you need to see anything, for example, pulling an old record for transcript purposes or running an old report card, you'll still be able to see all of that information. You won't be able to make any more edits to that. If, however, you decide you'll need to make some updates, you can always come back in and re-edit your academic year and mark it from closed to active. And you'll see that if I go into, for example, my students, I can still see data from that 17-18 year. It's grayed out to indicate that it's closed, and my 18-19 year is still in the future, meaning I'm getting ready for that year, but it's not active and available to parents or instructors yet. That sums up everything you would need to do to roll over from one academic year to the next. So I want to thank you all for joining me today.